Alrighty, good morning everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather, the last long range update of the year for 2015. Wow. Man, it's hard to believe 2015 is already here and just about gone, but it is, folks. It is 9:53 a.m. Eastern Time here as I'm recording this video. Live look at national radar out there. Not a lot going on around here. Temperatures holding in the 30s. Of course, though, the really the big big story for us is all the flooding that's going on. In fact, if I just turn on the National Weather Service advisories layer here, you can see lots and lots and lots of weather advisories for flooding all up and down here along the Mississippi River, where we were just inundated with major rainfalls. Of course, here in Indiana, we didn't get as much as they got out here, but we still got certainly plenty. In fact, as we zoom in, still plenty of advisories going on for us, flood warnings all over the place. So keep that in mind, folks out there. Streams are still starting to recede. So as you're out there for your New Year's Eve plans tonight, folks, well, just enjoy. It looks like it's going to be precipitation free. It's going to be a rather cloudy kind of a day, though. Right now, if we just turn the satellite layer on, well, you can see it's pretty gloomy out there. It's going to stay pretty gloomy pretty much most of the day here as well, folks. It's just not going to recede cloud-wise very much. It's going to stay cool with temperatures in the 30s today, too. Now, if you're headed out for New Year's Eve tonight, here's your forecast. Going down to around 30 by midnight or so. And again, pretty much a mostly cloudy night, so make sure you wear some long sleeve shirts. Grab those jackets, those winter coats with you, and bundle up. It's going to be a cool night out there. All right, let's go ahead and start talking then about the pattern from where we are going down here. Over the next few days, we're going into a fairly quiet pattern. That's good. It's nice to have a little bit of a quiet pattern for once, considering we haven't had considering we've had a pretty active pattern here lately. Let me just illustrate this for you with the GFS model. I'll put this into motion for you, and what you're going to see is pretty much a quiet pattern. We see some systems rolling off to our south and maybe off to our north there as well, but really nothing rolling through for us. I don't know about you, but I'll take the quiet weather for a little while. That'll change as we start to get later into the month of January, though. Let's say we start to get here. We're around the 7th now, and you see a storm system there along the coast. You've got another system out to our west starting to build in. Models are all over the place for this time frame right now. So some models indicate rain for the 6th, 7th, and 8th. Some don't. We're going to use our best guess right now in the extended range forecast. But to be completely honest with you, models always suck at a pattern change. And that's what we're under right now, is we're getting ready to go into a more of a winter type pattern compared to what we saw in December. So these deterministic models are just going to flat out suck. Every time we go through a pattern change, that's what ends up happening. And so we're going to see these storms pop up, and they're going to vary wildly on what they say that we're going to come from run to run. So again, I've warned you of that before. I'll just hit that preface for you again. But as we go through this right now, the latest GFS as of last night, the 0Z run here, does give us a storm system moving in around the 9th or 10th, and right now the GFS is looking like it's going to be rain. Now that is, of course, taken with a grain of salt, because the GFS has went back and forth the past several days on this, as whether it's rain, snow, whether it's mixed. Right now, we're not really going to be able to nail down what the P-type is going to be until we get a little bit closer to time. That said, there's plenty of other systems that roll through. A little clipper rolls through after that, and then you get some more that come in the extended range after that as well. So as we get more towards the mid-month, we start to see some of those chances increase a little bit more. Now, I do want to also show you that as we get into mid-month, around the 9th, 10th, 11th, right around in there is where the GFS has been showing a storm system now for the past 3 or 4 days. The Euro is starting to pick up on this as well. The EPS control models are showing this as well. And this is not, of course, as pretty as a map as the other one, but let me just show you this. Quiet pattern pretty much sticks around for a good little while. Possible there early next week we get some little drizzle or some snow showers mixed in for some people. Off to our north, it would be more of a drizzle thing for us, I think. But by the time you get into the extended period, that is whenever you start to see this system developing out to our west. And then watch what happens. The cold weather starts to invade. Remember that first blue dashed line here is typically what you call your rain, snow changeover line. That's your 540 thickness line. At this time of the year, it typically indicates the rain-snow line. And then watch this. As we move into the frame around the 10th here, the Euro has a pretty sizable snowstorm. Now, this is not the Euro model that you're mostly familiar with. What most people call the Euro model is the deterministic model. This is actually the control run of the ensembles, the EPS, Environmental Prediction Ensemble Prediction System, I believe is what it's called. And essentially what this is this is the control run of those. It's a modified version of the deterministic model. Euro deterministic does not see this kind of a storm for us at all. The EPS control model does. Some of its ensembles agree with it as well. Some of its ensembles don't agree with it. So what is the takeaway for this? Well, the takeaway for this is there's the potential that is certainly there for something big as we head mid-month. So we'll go ahead and give a heads up for it. But again, is it going to be a pretty sizable snowstorm like what you see on this? And by the way, I'm not going to show you the snow totals graphic because I don't think there's really any point at this juncture showing that. But let's just say it gave us several inches worth of snow in this control run of the EPS. But again, you go back here to the GFS, and let's just remind ourselves that the GFS says rain this far out. So there's a lot of differences in the modeling, and those differences are going to, well, they're going to have to work themselves off. But, you know, we're 10, 11 days away from this, folks, so that you can pretty well expect that. What we do know is the indices are working in favor of a colder regime taking in. Let's just take a look at that. Let's take a look first off at the AO, the Arctic Oscillation. Remember, the Arctic Oscillation is cold air available from Canada to be moved down. And what you see, all of these red lines are different ensemble members of the model here. And what you can see is we're going strongly into the negative with just a couple of members saying, nah, I'm not sure about that. By far, most of them are saying we go down into the negative. Then we look at the North Atlantic Oscillation, the NAO. It's also trending into the negative here. And a negative NAO will indicate a blocking pattern. We don't necessarily have to have this to get snow here in the Ohio Valley, but it is helpful. What the NAO does is it shuts the North Atlantic Ocean down and says, sorry, we're closed for business. Storms slow down and have to go around that blocking pattern. That can bottle up cold weather and give us more of a potential for snow. It's trending in the negative as well. PNA very firmly trending in the positive. It looks to go on a downward trend, but then go right back up. Stays pretty much positive. In fact, all the ensemble members keep it positive as you go throughout the period here. So really what you're going to see here is, again, a positive PNA. We've talked about this before, but a positive PNA, again, is essentially a dip in the jet stream over us and a ridge out west. That's exactly what we want if we want that cold air from Canada to move down in. We need that cooler air to make the potential for any snow, and so that's a favorable system for that. And then if we just take a look at the EPO, the East Pacific Oscillation, you want this firmly into the negative if you want some colder weather for us. Essentially what the EPO does is it helps the PNA go positive. EPO is kind of the cousin to the NAO. The NAO is blocking in the North Atlantic. The EPO helps to indicate some blocking there into the Pacific Ocean up around Alaska. The negative EPO helps to set up a blocking ridge up below Alaska. That helps the PNA to end up going positive, and you get a dip in the jet stream over us. So when you see this go into the negative strongly like this, that's another indication that cooler weather could set up for us. So basically what you see is all of the four main teleconnections that we look at are going favorable for colder weather this month, and that certainly would be favorable for a snow system. So that helps to make something like this maybe a little bit more believable whenever you see a snowstorm coming up on there. Now, that doesn't mean I'm buying into it yet. It doesn't mean I'm forecasting snow yet, but it does give enough interest to me to peak to say this could fit the pattern. We'll keep an eye on it. Then again, this could just as easily happen. You know how it is in the Ohio Valley. We get potential snowstorms all the time that turn into rain. So really either solution is possible right now, but certainly the indices going the way they are do indicate the potential that we've got to watch out for that snow as we head later in the month. Either way, it's not going to happen anytime soon. I think the first hints of that probably wouldn't come till about the 9th or 10th and beyond, and it looks like we're going to have a fairly active back half of the month from the way the indications are looking to me at this point. Now, of course, a couple other things that we'll look at here in the long range too. I talk sometimes about the MJO index. This is just going to give us more indication of modeling troubles. Right now, the GFS model, and this is actually the GEFS, the ensembles, they want to only take the, and without explaining what all this means, we've seen some of this before if you've watched my videos, but basically what the MJO is, When you see the lines go out of the circle, that's what we call a strong MJO, has a stronger influence on our weather, and it goes from warm to cool phases for us. So a phase 7 here would correlate to a warm phase over the eastern half of the country. Phase 8 and Phase 1, cooler half for this time of the year, for the January, February, March period. All right, keep that in mind. The GFS is indicating that we stay in a Phase 7, that warm phase. ECMWF, though, the Euro model, nope, it's taking us very fast out of the warm phase into a cool phase. A lot of its ensembles keeping it very strong, some of them keeping it more into the weak, so there's some differences in the modeling by far on this. Again, well, here you see the differences in the Euro being snow, the differences in the GFS being rain. You're seeing it show up in the MJO forecast there as well. Is it going to be a cooler regime setting up, or are we going to stay more in the moderate? If you just take a look at the temperature data here, then from the GFS ensembles, which keeps us in that phase 7, that warmer regime, you do see these being fairly moderate warm temperatures here all the way through that system. Of course, 40s for when that system would roll through. It would be rain with that, and a cool down to where we're at now into the upper 30s after that. Now, I don't have this available to show you in the Euro, but it's much cooler than this. So there's some things that we have to certainly work out over the coming periods. All right. Now, one of the other things that I got into on a blog post that I did on Tuesday, I believe it was about the polar vortex. There's a lot of chatter going on out there on the social media world about the polar vortex right now. You may have heard about a very strong storm system. In fact, the same storm system that caused severe weather for us and all of the flooding that we just saw. It went out to sea. It just sort of had bombogenesis go on. It became just a huge low pressure. It actually went up here towards Iceland, and it pumped 100-mile-per-hour winds towards the North Pole, southerly winds. North Pole actually went above freezing for only for like the second time that we have on record. They never go above freezing up there, even during the summertime. Here it is the winter time, and they went above freezing. That was how powerful of a storm system it was, and of course that didn't last long, but nonetheless, that warm air pumped in there. One of the fears with that is it could end up warming the polar vortex up enough that it starts to break off. And that, of course, is the fear. Of course, I've told you earlier the polar vortex was holding its own. The last long-range video update, I showed you the polar vortex, and I showed you essentially that it was still holding strong, that it was starting to wobble a little bit, but there weren't a whole lot of signs of a split. Now that's a little bit different in the modeling. Now a full-out split is showing up in the modeling. So here we are right now. This is the analysis of where the polar vortex is. This is the lower part of the polar vortex. This is at the 100 millibar level. You want the very top of it, you got to go up to about 10 millibars. But we're looking nonetheless here about around the polar vortex, and there you see it's still fairly strong, and it's all in one piece, but it is starting to wobble. And by wobble, I mean if we were to put this into motion, it's elongating, and it's going to elongate more. Now let me just show you a few more frames of this. By the time we get a couple of days out from now, it's really starting to wobble. And then there it starts to elongate a little bit more. You see as we get here by around the 4th of January, now we're starting to see two distinct pieces starting to come into play. And then there we go. It's starting to split off real good. And by the time you get later in the month, there you have kind of the dumbbell effect going on where these two are going to rotate around each other, and you've got two pieces, distinct pieces of the polar vortex. It's split, and as we head way into the time frame here, this takes us to about the 15th, mid-month. What you notice is that a piece of that polar vortex is starting to break off. It's already broken off. It's already down here to the top portion of Canada now, instead of residing firmly up here at the North Pole. What does that matter? What's that got to do with priced potatoes in China? Well, basically, it means this. Whenever the polar vortex breaks off and comes further south, that means a colder weather pattern for us. So, again, this is, it's possible that it doesn't break off to the extent that it's showing, but it sure looks like it is right now with it starting to elongate there. So, if this does indeed happen, and again, That's something that we'll keep an eye on over the coming days. Folks, if this does indeed happen and it starts to break off like that, we could be looking at a very cold back half of January if it comes far enough south. In fact, you'll remember that the last time it came this far south, the past 2 Januaries, it did this exact thing, and we went, and we went very, very cold during that. In fact, we went below zero one time whenever the polar vortex came this far south. It came as far south as around the Hudson Bay area, which would be a little further south than this Hudson Bay. The polar vortex prior to this month came down to right around in here where my cursor is here. So it's a little further south last time than this, but that's not to say it won't go further. Again, we got to keep this in mind. Right now, we're not looking for 100% exact placement. We're looking for pattern, and we're seeing what it's going to do, and the pattern is certainly shaping up to be a colder one the later on we get into January. So that, of course, would favor snowier setups. That could favor stormier setups as well, as something that we're just going to have to see. Again, we're seeing that show up a little bit in the modeling already, but the bottom line, exciting times coming our way if you like cold and snow. Now, if you like the warmer weather, I'm sorry, folks, I'm not seeing the 60s or the 70s return to us for January. In fact, we might see a couple of days in the 50s, but we're probably not going to see all that many days in the 50s. Again, these ensemble numbers from the GFS hinting at several days in the upper 40s towards the 50s. But again, the Euro model, which tends to have a more reliable solution to it, is a little bit cooler than this. So I'm skeptical of this. And to be honest with you, I've got to, to be completely honest with you folks, even forecasting temperatures outside of 5 or 6 days right now is very volatile because the models are so different from each other. So I do think that we're going to see some at least mild temperatures here for the first part of January as this cooler pattern takes shape. I do think we're going to go back into the 40s. I'm fairly confident of that, at least down here in the, along the Ohio River counties. Further you get north, then, it might be a little bit of a different story. But once we get into the later in the month, frankly, the GFS ensembles here may just be a little bit too warm. I'm a little skeptical from, say, about the 8th onward, whether we see any 40s or whether that goes to more of 30s and lower. We will just have to see. The models will adjust over time. Right now, we're a good little ways off here, but again, something that we will keep an eye on. For now, though, again, you got New Year's Eve plans. It's a cold night. You can go to southernindianaweather.com, click on 10-day forecast. You can always get this. Highs in the mid to maybe upper 30s at best today. Again, we're going down pretty cold tonight, but then sunshine takes over for the weekend. It's just going to be chilly. Slight warming trend, though, next week back into the mid 40s. Not bad. And again, as we head into next weekend, right now, I've got temperatures in the upper 40s to near 50 degrees. But we'll have to see. This was based off of the forecast that I did yesterday. Model data again today is coming in way different. So again, the confidence in this is very low. Will this end up being a rain or will this end up being a snow setup as we go later on into the month? Probably going to be rain with this one. It will be snow as we head later on in. After that would be the possibility, but not looking pretty as we head later on into the month. So we will adjust this as time goes on. But again, I would say, folks, outside of maybe Monday, not a whole lot of confidence in the forecast at this. So just keep it tuned here to Southern Indiana Weather. We will do the best to get through this. Active month coming up. Again, if you love this kind of weather, well, if you love that colder and snowier pattern, I think January and the later we go into January will kind of be your month. Folks, that's it for this latest long-range update. Hope you have a fantastic New Year's Eve. Thanks for trusting us to be your weather source for the year 2015. We'll hope you'll join us again for much more in 2016. Take care and have a great day, folks.